What's up, flooring family? Welcome to the huddle. Come at you every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Central, to discuss maintaining forward progress in your flooring career. Today with me, Mr. Daniel and Jose Gonzalez from Preferred Flooring in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
How's it going,
guys? How's Grand Rapids today?
It's actually kind of warm out.
Yeah, dude.
It's like
It's kind of nice.
It's 56. That's like summertime.
It's hot outside.
Well, you guys were, I don't know if it was the last podcast or the previous. It was snowing out.
It was snowing, yeah. It was 2 weeks ago.
Oh, man. Well, we are in the Midwest, and you guys are too, so it can change that way. We happen to have some nice weather over here. Perfect weather to discuss today's topic of installer burnout. It's not your typical topic we go into, but because I just don't think it's discussed enough, because there's a lot of nuance to it. Is it installer burnout from a aspect that they still want to be, they still love flooring, but they just been, it's the summertime and you got them working on 7 days a week trying to get school projects done, or traveling all over the nation doing different projects, or is it actual, just sick of being in the flooring industry? Chatting with you guys just a minute ago, I mean, I don't know that I've ever experienced as an installer the like, I want to be out of this industry side, but I have been burnt out, like worn out. And I don't know if there's a lot of remedies to that outside of taking some time off. We all need to recharge our batteries. And I thought it was interesting earlier. I was watching a podcast about being in the flow state and like performing at your highest, and how important rest and recovery is to being like a top performer in whatever you're doing, whether it's installing floors or being in the trades, or whether it's working in an office. And I thought it was really interesting, just a piece that came out of that, the difference between relaxation and recovery. Relaxation is going home and kicking on the tube and throwing back a couple of beers at the end of the day. And recovery is actually disconnecting and like getting in some silence and some getting out of your own headspace and trying to disconnect from the world for a minute. I thought that was kind of an interesting take on it. But how do you do that as an installer? And like, what are the signs? How do you even know as a company when your installers, or when a particular installer is burning out? What are the signs of that?
Always late, missing, forgetting things all the time, not caring about your stuff. I mean, those are signs, because we just experienced it. So, we're going to continue to experience it, but most recently just experienced it. And the signs started to happen months ago, even after time, before time off was there. And I know, because I was an installer. I remember, I remember just, oh well, I'll worry about that tomorrow, like stuff like that. But then all it does is compound everything and put you in an even worse spot.
Talk about punch lists and stuff like that. You can, like, when someone's typically doesn't have a lot of punch list items, and then that next job, sometimes, it takes a lot out of them. And at the end of that job, it's like, man, we got a bunch on here. And then you actually realize, like, yeah, maybe some people were overworked, but it's hard to say, because I've seen, I guess everyone burns out at different times, right? Because
Yeah.
I've seen it where it's like, come on, guys, you're not even working a full 40 hours a week on the job site. So how is this burnout even happening right now?
Well, that's what makes it a complicated thing, is because it's not always work hours. It can be the particular, they could be working beyond their skill set and really, working on stuff that's really difficult for them to do. That's where I found the most, if it frustration / installer burnout would be when I was doing things that were super challenging, that I was probably installing beyond my knowledge or beyond my ability, and still had to figure out a way to get it done. I know we all get there on certain projects sometimes. But the details is what I have seen the most in our company. Is it's like the little details that guys usually don't miss, that get missed. It's like those, it turns into punch lists, like you said, but it's not like the whole job looks terrible or something. It's the detail stuff. I had a project where, just recently, where went in and replaced some carpet tile on a project that had curled. It was a manufacturer defect. It was a claim. We went in, was able to leave the vinyl base. Well, when they cut some of the tile, they cut through the base on a couple of the locations. They left it. Instead of replacing 8 feet of base, the rest of the whole thing, they didn't cut through. They cut through a couple spots, and they thought, I could almost guarantee you the thought was like, no one will notice, or,
let's prop it up on there. Look, can't even tell.
Yeah. And the first vacuum hits it and you see the cut, and we had to go back and replace, 8 or 10 feet of base, where that particular installer that was doing that wall, decided to leave it. And it was a night job, because you're trying to, go in and replace something you just installed a month ago. And so it turned from a project to a occupied project. And so now you're trying to move stuff, and you're having to move, some furniture around and replacing things. And it was clear to me that, we probably shouldn't have had him work that day and then have him go work 4 or 5 hours that night. Honestly, hindsight's always 20/20. But it's those kinds of things where it can be just a day, where you got to be cognizant of your crews, and because we all try to deliver great products to our, into the day, try to deliver great projects, I should say, to our clients. But duty calls, and you try to satisfy timeframes and everything else, and so all these things come into it that make it complicated. But I wonder if there's anybody out there that's had true, like, because I've heard of those guys just like, I'm getting the hell out of flooring, I'm just done. And I've seen some guys do that. What causes that?
A couple buddies of ours have done that. Like, they call and say, everything's for sale. Everything's for sale. You want it? Are you sure? Yep, I'm sure. Okay. And then we buy a few things, and a year later, they're like, yeah, I guess I'm just going to do it again, but I'm only going to do this kind of flooring now. It's like,
yeah, I've had those guys too. Like, hey, I'll do your carpet tile, but I don't want to do anything else.
And like I said, like, the hours and what actually, how people feel about things. Like, we got Paul on YouTube right now. He's talking about, he's the guy from the UK, and he says that health and safety is burning him out, trying to follow every single thing down to a T. And it's like, well, if I can't do this way, like I've been doing, and trying to switch everything over, and on top of that, not feeling like you're not getting paid what you're worth for the project you're doing, right? So that could be a big thing too. But at the same time, that's what this is all about, is knowing what you're worth, and charging for that. That way you don't have to feel like that.
Yeah, that's one of the key aspects of the hammer rating for the installer. I mean, that whole thing was to really give the good installers that ammo behind them. Hey, if you got a great hammer rating and a great kudo rating, then you're gonna make more money. In the areas where Go Carrera is used heavily, that's been proven true. And past in the pay, I wonder how much the attitude towards flooring guys on projects plays into it, because we're a disruptor on a job because we have to take up the floor the floor space. And so it's when you're constantly fighting for your next area. And when I first got in the business, it was different. Like, it was understood, and GC's, like, it seemed like it was more like they wanted to get out of your way. Now it's like more like you got to fight to get them out of your way. I don't know if that's just condensed schedules or if it's a multitude of things, but man, when you're fighting all the time for space, that can play into it as well. Like,
100%.
I just want to do my job, man. Get out of my way.
The line that I use a lot in scenarios like that is, I need the floor to do the floor. I can do 200 square feet, pretty close, same amount of time I could do 2,000 square feet. It's just the more you make me start and stop, the less efficient we're going to be, and then we're going to be here longer. So it's either you clear people out for one day, or they keep moving all their stuff around multiple days. And it's hard to get people to understand that.
Yeah. Well, that's obviously the battle we got to fight for our installers as companies, but at the same time, I hope this reaches some GCs sometimes, and they can hear the frustration that comes across and that we have to deal with. We only want to come and do a good job, but fighting for space is an added, like, pressure on the installer to, especially when it's like, oh, you tell me when you're going to be there. Well, like,
Yeah, Daniel just had that.
that gets frustrating. That gets frustrating for a company, but it also gets frustrating for the guys on site. But another part to that is, like, every time that an installer has a new thing they have to, like, speaking to Paul's comment from YouTube, every time you have to do a little bit more, and this safety thing has, obviously gotten much more critical over the last 10 years than I remember going to the job sites, no hard hat. Like, it was just like, if I have to wear a hard hat, you're not ready for me. That's what we used to say. And that just doesn't fly anymore. And so I know a lot of guys still struggle with that piece. Like, safety is a big piece of what the GCs are looking for these days, if you're working for GCs. But even building, like, some of our end users, they want you to be safe, and so they're starting to adopt even, like, that kind of an attitude towards it. Maybe not as hardline, but we've got some owners that they want you to have the proper safety gear and high vis vests and everything when you're on their property.
They want to be able to differentiate you just by looking at you like he's working construction somewhere. He does that way. It's not like, what is this guy doing in our building?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but all those go into play with what a guy has to juggle on site. I always recommend just swallow hard. Safety's not going anywhere. You might as well adopt it and embrace it, and go to a job site with everything on. Be prepared. There's we don't fight with our guys anymore about it. It's just, this is the rule. But outside of that, a lot of the burnout that I've seen, or that I've talked to some guys about, is the frustration, like you said, with pay and never getting ahead. that never getting ahead part, I think could be visited back to some previous podcasts about financially knowing your worth, but also I know some guys that have, some crews that have been paid very well that still constantly seem to struggle. And I think that's just, go watch some previous podcasts about, handling your financial situation better, because as you know, money's one of the hardest like stressors in anyone's life. And if you're not handling that right, then the rest of it can go be very stressful, and you can be like, ah. And like you said, Jose, I've had plenty of guys, I have witnessed guys leaving and then they come back. I only have one guy that I know of that was certified, good carpet installer, good sheet vinyl guy, that quit and went driving trucks, and he's still driving trucks today, 5 years later.
I quit for a little while too, because I went and did electrical for almost a year. And
tell us about it. Obviously you had a reason.
well, that was more of a atmosphere, right? Like there's a lot of pressure on me to pick people up, and and when then when I was picking people up in the winter, and one person runs 5 minutes late, another person runs a couple minutes late, and next thing you know, now the people I'm picking up, because they're relying on me to get to the job site, now we're half hour, 45 minutes behind, and it comes down on me. And it didn't matter it just didn't matter, right? It came down on me, and I think everybody, that was a tipping point. Like, you know what, I don't want to pick anybody up anymore. Then, like, I just don't want to do it.
Yeah, that can get old.
Yeah, and this is a long time ago, so times definitely changed, and there's probably a lot more in between to the story than that, but in a nutshell, that was it, right? It's just sometimes added responsibility, and then when nobody cares that responsibility was added to you, and they don't see what you got to deal with when they're not around, it makes you just not want to care for them anymore. I don't want to pick you up.
Yeah.
I don't want to be your chauffeur. You're a grown man.
What do you do when your sub crews, showing some of those signs of burnout? Do you guys ever get to that point where you're like, we need to loosen up on giving this crew so much work because some of their quality is it when the quality starts to come down? Because that's what we do, and I don't know that it's that effective, because then the damage is already done. It's almost like you got to look out and see that.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I don't know about that point, because we try to do the majority of everything in house. So
yeah,
the work for subs is few and far in between. And I will say that there's one or two where I always feel like the work that I have for them is scheduled. There's like so busy, and it's like, oh, I guess I'll fit it in. Well, look, you can't fit it in. I don't want you to squeeze me in, right? Like,
yeah,
I'm honest about that, because if something goes wrong on the other job, guess what? You're not showing up for mine, or you're carrying that burden on your shoulders into our project too. And I don't want the explosion to happen on our project. I don't want it to happen.
Yeah, I want to be priority.
Right. And every
that
job
comes down to scheduling and knowing what you can do, and making sure you schedule yourself correctly, and that you don't take on too much work for what you can, right. But I've had plenty of crews like commit to projects, and I don't think that it was really considered whether they could, fully commit, but whether they could perform that project to the degree that we wanted. And that comes clear. If we can identify it earlier, we might be able to do something about it. But by the time I've identified it, it's like they're already doing those things that are going to cause the problem.
Yeah. So that what you just said though, like we as subs, right, when we were labor only and doing that, I would say that I had a hard time balancing that because you either have too much work or not enough. And we had to say, what time of year is it? What are we shooting for? Where are we at? How are the guys doing? Can we take this on or no? And sometimes the answer was no. Sometimes it was like, I don't care that it's going to be slow in a month. I just don't want to do it right now. I don't want to deal with that. And
Well, I appreciate the guys that are that know their schedule and know what they can get done in a given time. We had a scenario come up where guy committed to a job, had the whole project lined out. I mean, all the information when he accepted the project. Got about 3/4 of the way through it and had another job he had to go to, and pretty much left us high and dry. We had to go, get somebody else to do that job. And that's not necessarily burnout, but that's what leads to it, because he knows he's letting one of his main companies down, and that can't feel good to him. But at the same time, you got to look at what you can actually get done and commit to your projects and make sure you have the schedule, and then schedule some time off for yourself. I know a lot of the time when I was installing as a sub, I took on everything. It didn't matter, man. I worked any hours all the time. And, burnout might be the right answer. At the time, I just thought I was tired, but give yourself some time off to recover. I know you guys, you prioritize family. And I think that's a big part of this too. People who prioritize family and understand they need that family time and they need the time with their loved ones, tend to, manage this a little bit better than others.
We try.
But like I said, that's what we do though. It's, if I know we're going to be going somewhere, I will work a million hours between this time and this time. So that way, when I do leave, everything's covered. So maybe it is working up to that burnout point just in that little bit of a time, but then also taking that time to kind of reset.
Daniel,
you kind of know you have that recovery time coming right around the corner.
Yeah, like he worked till midnight last night in the field. We had a guy quit on us yesterday, so he went out, worked till midnight. Right, he intentionally put himself in a burnout mode, but that was so that way the crew who had to go wrap up the project today didn't burn themselves out. And some people are mentally strong enough to do it and reset in the morning. Some people are not. Some people just hold on to they dwell on something. Something's eating them. And a lot of the mental burnout comes from, like you said, overextending your ability, right? Uncomfortable situation for extended period of time, but also it's lack of communication. Because if you're not expressing yourself, whether you're a sub, an employee, even GCs, if they don't express themselves, I've seen them blow up at the end of projects. If you're not expressing concerns and you're not bringing things to anyone's attention and nobody knows but you, or nobody knows but the crew you're working with, because that's the tendency is to vent to who you see every day, right? But nobody's ever relaying that. That can also lead to burnout. And communication is part of it. Like, you got to communicate. These are my thoughts. These are my feelings. These are my concerns. I'm not really into it mentally right now. I don't know why, but I'm going to keep pushing on. What can we do to help me out? What can we do to make some changes so that way you can put your best foot forward?
I think that we're talking about burnout, right? But I think he's talking about mental burnout and then there's physical burnout. So I think there's two different kinds of burnout.
Yes.
Because
that's a good point.
Because physically, I think it's a lot easier to go out there and burn yourself out physically, but mentally it's when it's like becomes real drastic where, especially on the business owner side. And then when you're running crews, like when we were labor only even, and then having to go home and handle all the paperwork. And then I think that side is really a lot more taxing personally, because when I was just installing, I didn't have to, use my brain as much. I just went out there and, beat up my body. And yeah, you get tired. Like you said, yeah, I'm tired. But then you wake up and do it all over again. The mental side is where it's like, I mean, there's been times where I'm just sitting at my desk and I'm just like, I'm
Not
gonna
there.
go do something else for, an hour or so, because mentally you just can't handle it anymore. And it's just like that hour break just relieves so much pressure that you have built up in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the one of the reasons we with our hourly crews, we require like a lunch period. We've had to fight that over the years where guys work through lunch and they're just like, just want to, they just want to, whether they, whether they actually work through lunch or not, we don't know. Other than they're still clocked in, but doing that every single day, it's a safety problem. We want them to reset a little bit, but it's also important to just kind of get away at some point in the day. You talked about an hour away. It could be 20 minutes away. I've stepped away from the computer just to get my thoughts and quit looking at the dang thing. But I do agree with you. When you're bridging both sides is when it gets really tough. When I was subbing and I'd get home and have to like do an hour's worth of paperwork or figure out, my receipts, and because I tried to do job costing. Even then, I wanted to know whether I was actually profitable on the job. And if I had to buy a new tool just for that project, then, I was calculating that and doing the paperwork side on the backside of installing that can be taxing. And so you got to mentally, I don't know that there's a great way to handle that unless you got somebody that can give you some help. And
It's a muscle. It's a muscle, right? Like it's something that you have to practice, and you do get better at it, right? The things that you miss in the beginning, you don't miss after you get a little more practice, right? Because it becomes second nature. It's just like installing. You didn't go out your first time and flash code and weld, right? You went out probably 20 times on your first flash code and weld before you walked away from one seam or one vertical weld that you were like, I did that, right? Some 20 times, 50 times. Like I know everyone hits those milestones at different points, but that's what it is. It's that muscle that you got to exercise it and get better and come up with your own system that works for you using other people's ideas maybe. But that's the hard part. It's just understanding I've hit a brick wall. Let me walk away for a minute and then come back and refresh. Like back in the day, I used to say it all the time. Like, look, I am really mad at this right now. This is not working for me. I set my tools down. I set them down nice, right? Because that's me trying to set my stuff down nice and say, I'll be right back. I'll be back in a little bit.
Well, I've been there and maybe not set my tools down so nice before, but
I think it was more, maybe it was me, but I know Crystal does it too. It's like, you gotta come do this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go do something else.
You know what? I'll give up. I'll give up right now. Please help me. And some people can't do that.
It's certainly nice if you have somebody that can come, pick up I found the most frustration when I'm trying to pattern match carpet than almost anything else. It wasn't matching and you're trying to stretch the tar out of it or whatever. And
you're working on a time limit too, because that adhesive's setting up.
Yep. And you just got the phone with the tech rep and he said, nope, that's within tolerance. Yeah. And you're working to try to make this thing look as best as you can. I've gotten so frustrated. If there's a day burnout, I've certainly been there. I was ready to like just go join the tellers at the store I was working at, Start
asking people who walk by, how much do you guys make? Where do you
I'll be the greeter. But I think that, it's not a super deep subject. I mean, at the end of the day, we work with our hands as installers, or you work with your mind as installer as well. And certainly those two, when you're working them together and you're doing something complicated, just being cognizant going into it that day is going to be challenging. Preparing yourself, sorry, I couldn't get that out, but preparing yourself for that day and knowing going into it, it's gonna be one of them days. It can be rewarding if you're properly, prepared. But I also see that as a big part when we're installing, getting prepared for our day, our tools are right. There's nothing more frustrating to me than when my helper or somebody would leave like patch on my trowels or glue all over, those things. And you're going in first thing and you're cleaning tools up, and like taking care of your installation can help a lot, taking care of your tools. But, like I said, it's not a super deep subject. It's just being cognizant of it and having a few little, tricks. And I think taking a breather, and I know it can get hard to take a breather when you got people breathing down your neck to get the job done. But at the same time, how much more valuable can you be if you come back and you're super engaged in what you're doing? And that goes for whether you're in the office or whether you're installing in the field.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rollins says that he can't stop for lunch because it makes him feel more lazy than just working straight through. And that George eats enough for both of them, which I agree with. But I think it depends on
the person.
Yeah, on the person, right? Because I will get something to eat, but I'll be working, take a bite, work over here,
Yes.
take a bite, and just keep on going, right? And I just actually listened to the book again, Leaders Eat Last. And that's kind of like,
Oh, you got that one too? That's a good one.
I didn't realize, how much of this stuff we had in our minds already, because like in the field, I was always like, you guys go to lunch. I'm just going to stay back here. I'm going to set everyone up. That way, when you guys get back, you can just keep on going. And then maybe I'll take 10, 15 minutes, but if I don't set us up right now,
right,
then, we're just going to be at a standstill if everyone just leaves. So
that's it, right? You're constantly having progress being done, and sides of the crew, the person, right? But some people just don't need that mental break, that long of a mental break, or to get away from it for a full lunch, right? I don't know. I'm one of those people.
Well,
too.
maybe not every day. I'm just saying that when you feel that coming on, understanding that and saying, taking a half hour away can reset your mind. And I know plenty of guys that like to work through work and get home early, or, get off a little early. I understand that, but if you're working a full day, having a little break can help. But note at each, everybody's a little bit different.
Everyone is different. John says that he takes 1 hour religiously, and if it's nice outside, he'll go for a 30-minute run. That's how you know he's crazy, because he runs for fun.
Who said that? Yeah, the fluorinator?
Yep.
Bro, if you say you use your lunch break to go running, no wonder he's the
that's soldier right there, baby.
Oh.
Whatever clears your mind. Hey, what's cool is that he found a way to do it.
You know what?
Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, if that works for you, we had a guy, he's retired now, but he brought the same thing for lunch every day. He never left the job site to go eat, but he would go, if it was nice outside, he'd go find a place to sit down outside, eat his peanut butter and banana sandwich. And that's what he's going to do. And it was religious. Each to their own. The key, I think, is just knowing yourself well enough to whether it's go for a run, sit and eat your peanut butter and banana sandwich, or whatever it is, to reset yourself.
I kind of want to try a peanut butter and banana sandwich now. I'm not gonna
Really.
lie.
You know
It
what?
was every day.
You made me think. You made me think of where maybe the burnout happens because we're just all creatures of habit, right? We're all creatures of habit, and if your routine gets messed up so many times during the day, during a week, it really messes with you mentally. The mental drains you physically because you don't have any energy, or the physical, right? If you're physically being pushed to your limits more often than what you're used to, then maybe that's the burnout there too. So maybe it's a matter of creating that expectation that something's going to go wrong, something's going to be different, but trying to maintain that structure for yourself. I don't know. You just made me think
Well,
about.
I can tell you one thing that, the constant push for production in our industry, that's a real thing. And that's constantly, I know we do it as a company to our installers. We need a certain amount of stuff done. And it's like this constant need for production. And, there's job site challenges that they have to face that go along with that production. And I don't know that there's a great way around that. That's construction these days. Timelines have gotten shorter. The expectation for what you do in a day has gotten more. And that pressure is right there on the people on the job site trying to get it done for you. The best we can do as companies is, have our installers' backs and at the same time still have an expectation that's reasonable. That's a fine line though.
Right. I think like when I was in the field, what I would do was I would jam pack the front end of the week. So that way by the end of the week, it was all right, let's have a all right day on Friday. But I'm seeing like especially some of the younger people, it's the exact opposite. It's always, hey, we'll just do that tomorrow. We'll just do that tomorrow. And then by Friday, it's like, yo, you still got to get done today, man. Like there is no, hey, we're not gonna finish this job today. It has to get done. And you didn't plan yourself. So I don't feel bad for you that you're working till 8 o'clock tonight. I don't, because you left at 3 o'clock on Monday, 3 o'clock on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Some of this burnout is self-sabotage. And it's real. Like, yeah, you can do that to yourselves. You can burn yourself out, like just by doing that day-to-day thing where it's
that's just right with the planning we talked about earlier. I mean, planning a project is planning the whole project for that week, and that's a good point. I mean, if the job has to be done and you're kicking the can down the road, sooner or later that's got to be dealt with. I mean, it's got to get done. I talk a lot about it with our project managers about like being cognizant of what we're expecting out of the installation crews we have on a job, but not from the burnout side. If I'm honest, it's more of like try to have proper expectations and managing the expectations of our client and being upfront with them. We can't get to that part that far this week or whatever the scenario is on a particular project, but that's really where we're in a professional business, and it's important that we're professionals about it. And that, the 6 P's, I think I've said before, it came from a guy that started a big company here in our city, Rent-A-Center. His name's Tom Devlin, and he his deal was the 6 P's was proper planning prevents piss poor production. And at the end, that speaks to right what you were saying, Jose, is like plan a little heavier in the beginning of the week and make the end of your week a little bit nicer going into your weekend if you don't have to work. And but
I'd rather have a 4-hour Friday than a 4-hour Monday. I tell you that.
Yeah.
Do I want a 10-hour Monday? depends on what I did that weekend, I guess, right? But if my extracurricular activities are causing me to drag out a Monday because I don't feel good or I'm just like mentally out of it, then maybe I need to reassess what I do on the weekends that's affecting not only my Monday, but my crew's Monday and everyone else's Monday. Like, and that's the thing too, is have I been that person? 100%. I've been that guy. I've been on a job site with this dude, like, dude,
He went to go sleep in the van.
I gotta go sleep. What? I gotta go sleep. I'm so sorry. Like, I mean,
and it was like 100 degrees that day too. So
I was
It wasn't a good sleep either.
No.
woke up, looked like I peed on myself. It's just, I just wasn't.
Well, that's, I mean, fair point that, how we treat ourselves over the weekend, then that goes back to like relaxing or escaping versus true recovery. Like the gentleman who goes for a run, I forget his name, that just commented. What's that?
The fluorinator.
The fluorinator.
Yeah.
That's still, even though he's exerting his body, he's doing it in a different manner. And
that's he says that it resets his brain to focus on the task at hand, and that's where you get the mental, right? Because that's how, I feel the same way. I'll go work out at 6 a.m. and it's like being there for that half hour, 45 minutes that I'm there kind of sets the pace for the day, and it's like that's my alone time.
And the one thing that I used to do when I was feeling the mental burnout or even physically is I used to say, hey, let's go to the park. I'm going to pitch you some softballs. I'm going to put my gear on and I want you to hit the ball at me. What? I want you to hit the ball at me. No matter where I throw it, aim for me, please. And it's like, that sounds stupid, right? But I was escaping mentally. Physically, I was doing dumb stuff. Like, that's pretty dumb. But I was getting my reps in. I was escaping mentally. And I was so happy to let all that out, like all that sweat, everything that I did for that 2 hours or 3 hours, however long I was out there practicing, like that was my escape. I get it. I get the run.
I think exercising and moving your body intentionally
Yes.
is a great way to manage your burnout. Talking about office and even installers, I mean, the escape or the whether you do it in the morning or at the end of the day, like moving your body intentionally is a big thing. Our controller at our office every morning runs a stretching routine for the entire anybody there. The installers are there, join in. Sometimes they're a little bit more reluctant when they are there, just shy almost. But a lot of the office staff is joining her every morning, just moving their body, doing some stretches. I know some job sites even require that. That's more of a safety thing. But, getting your head in a different mind space. I mean, you can do multiple different things. That I think what's important is just recognizing it so it doesn't just keep getting worse and worse, worse and worse. And before you know it, you're ready to just quit everything.
Yeah.
And that's where you don't want to end up.
And I think that recognition has to come. I mean, you got to be able to verbalize your feelings and your worries, and not only to everyone around you, but yourself. Like, I'm burnt out right now. Like, we were talking crap about you because you said you look a little tired. You're a little tired, right? Like, hey, perfect.
I've got the eye allergy stuff going on. So I've been blinking, dry eyes, all that good stuff. My eyes are burned out.
Like last night, I was here until 1 o'clock. I was working on my niece's exhaust, right? Was I tired? Yeah, I was tired. I kept telling myself, I said, there's 3 more things. There's 3 more things, but I knew that it had to be done. I didn't realize that it was that she'd been sitting without a car for that long. So found out what the issue was, found a remedy, said I'd take care of it. And I felt inclined to do it, right? That was my Zen. It was something totally different from the computer, from install, from the world. I don't do
Yep.
Excel work every day.
Mix it up, guys.
Mix
Go
it
for
up.
a run at lunch.
Come back.
Well,
off.
I know the subject this week was not super deep. It was super, surface oriented, but one of the things I remember sitting at CFI, and one of the guys talked about he's just burned out, and I asked what that meant. And he's just sick of the same old, same old, same old. And I'm like, you are in charge of your life, brother. You got to mix in a whole new product to start installing or something. Like if you're just burned out that way. But I think if I've learned anything, it's getting away a little bit. Whether it's on a day or a week, or planning your job to where you have a nice weekend. Each project is different. Each scenario is different, and we all have to manage our lives as best as we can, but being cognizant of it. I hope none of the installers out there are reaching, that point. We got some holidays coming up, and hopefully everybody can spend a wonderful Thanksgiving and a little bit of time off together with your family. But prioritizing your life is a piece of having a job and having a career, as well as if you're an independent installer running a business. And I know that stress and that pressure, and the pressure to produce both for the job and for your family. And it can get overwhelming sometimes, but hang in there and find some ways to truly recover.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to say you're not available. And I think back in the day, we were so worried about people not calling us back if we said that we can't, it was hard for us to say no. But I just had a project. They're like, really need this done before the holiday, and I was just like, I'm sorry, my hands are tied. The best I can do is the Monday after. If anything changes, I'll let you know. But that's the best that I can do. We're packed right now, and there's a holiday in there.
And sometimes the burnout is planned, because that's what I did.
Yes, it is.
I planned everyone. This is the first required weekend that we've worked a long time. But I was like, hey, we have this project. This is my plan, we have to start on Friday and be done on Wednesday. But then I'm paying you for 2 holiday days and you have the weekend.
Yeah.
Can we do this?
Yeah.
And then someone quit on us yesterday. So
yeah.
Well, damn it. All right. Well, guys, I think we've pretty much, like I said, chatted through the complications and signs and some tricks. There's no magic here. It's just being cognizant and maybe getting away. It's nice that a few people, it's first installer, I think I've taught, that's commented that he goes for a run. But that's excellent. I mean, however you can manage the stress and the demands of a project and demands of life, more power to you.
I know, now that I think of it, he does kind of have a Forrest Gump beard coming in now, doesn't he?
Just felt like running.
All right, guys. Well, I'm going to cut this one a little bit short this week. Thank you as always for joining, and appreciate your input, joining. I don't even know why I say that. I mean, like, you guys are the staples of this deal, and I again appreciate you guys so much. So,
but you're the stapler. We're just the staplers. You're the whole stapler.
I don't know. Ashlyn might be the actual stapler because she makes sure I'm on cue too.
I know, getting texts. Is anyone going to start joining soon?
All right, guys. Well, have a good week, and we will see you guys next week.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks,
have a
everyone.
good one.
See you guys.